Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Asher Marketing Podcast. This podcast is brought to you by Asher Agency, a full-service marketing agency with offices in Indiana, West Virginia, and Washington, D.C. For nearly 50 years, Asher has helped our clients tell their stories, reach customers and prospects, and stand out from the crowd. To learn more about how we can help your company, visit asheragency.com or contact us at hello@asheragency.com. My guest is Heather Herron. Heather, how you doing?
Great. How about you?
I'm doing great. Thanks for coming back. This is a newish thing that we're doing where some of our great guests from the past who have had a change in their career or who have something interesting to talk about are coming back. And you certainly have had a change in your career.
I've had a change. I'm not sure how interesting I am, but a big change.
Well, if nothing else, I'm interested, so I want to hear more about that. But I really appreciate you doing this at a busy time. You have, one of your daughters has a wedding this weekend.
4 days from now.
Wow.
It's crazy.
So you needed another thing to do, and that's why you came and saw us.
I'm happy to do it.
Well, I said this when we were off camera. I know you don't control the weather, but you have influence with those who report the weather.
Yes,
so maybe sunny skies are in the forecast.
I told Matt Leach yesterday, I said, I'm not going to be one of those people, but I promise you that every day this week I will be bugging you about the forecast.
Okay.
It is what it is.
Well, Matt, good luck with that.
Right.
Well, thanks for coming back. So, for those who don't know, and I suspect many people who listen to this podcast do know, when we last spoke, you had started a new job in corporate communications at Sweetwater, and now you're back behind the anchor desk.
Yes.
So talk a little bit about what inspired you to make that change.
Several things.
Yeah.
Part of it, I think, really was the timing of it. Mm-hmm. Many times after I left broadcasting, I said, I will never go back.
Yeah.
It had changed dramatically. I really was excited about the career opportunity at Sweetwater, ready to learn some new things. And Sweetwater was a terrific experience, and I did learn a lot. But what I also learned was a lot about myself and what drives me and what I'm good at and what I'm not good at.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so when the opportunity presented itself, I wasn't looking, but when it presented itself, I had to really think long and hard about what the future would look like. And if I did go back, how would the transition be? And will I have lost some of the natural ability to do it?
Yeah.
And so, a little bit of soul searching and thinking and talking a lot with my husband about things. And now it's been almost a year since I went back, and I'm so glad that I did.
Yeah. So you had been in one form of broadcast journalism or another for how long when you left to go to Sweetwater?
I started when I was 16 in radio.
Yeah.
And did that all through college, got into TV. So I had been in television almost 24 years when I left.
Yeah.
And then I was gone for 5.
Yeah.
And then now back a year.
Yeah. So I don't know about anyone else, but it was a huge surprise to me when I heard you were returning. Was that common? Did you have a lot of people say, wow, or what are you thinking?
Very much so. Because I had said very vocally, I will never go back. And
that'll make people surprised when you do come back. Yeah.
Especially a lot of former colleagues, who also, many of whom had also left the business. Yeah. Again, because it had changed so drastically and there had been some ownership changes. And so many of us had said, it was great while it lasted, but it's time to move on from this career.
Yeah.
So, yes, there was a huge amount of shock. And I had not told anyone that I was even contemplating it.
It did seem like a pretty well-kept secret.
It was very, it was hard to keep that, but yes, it was.
Yeah. Well, and you made this change at a time, you're sort of bucking the trend, right? There's a lot of folks, as you mentioned, who are moving from journalism into careers in corporate communications and in PR. So in a sense, you're kind of a trailblazer. You're just not blazing the same trail as a lot of people blaze.
You're exactly right, because there is a huge exodus right now in the broadcast news industry for many reasons. Yeah. Among them, the hours are not particularly good. Yeah. The pay is not as good as it is in a corporate communication type role. The pressures of being on camera, the atmosphere in the country right now with the media and some of the attitudes toward it. And so, it's very much not a trend to go back.
Well, and I would assume that some of it, you and I have known each other for a long time. Our kids went to the same schools, and we're both at a place where you more so than me because I'm doing it again with a 9-year-old stepdaughter. But,
yes.
Our older kids are out of the house. So I'm sure that makes it a little easier.
That was a huge factor. And it was a huge reason that I left to begin with, because I had done the evening shift. So I worked from 2:30 to midnight, and I did that for 18 years, the entire time my kids were growing up. Yeah. And I give my husband all the credit in the world because he's
doing school pickup. He's doing all the after-school activities, dinner, all that,
And I could run home. I had a dinner break, and I would run home, and I missed very, very few of their activities. Yeah. I could volunteer in their classrooms in the morning before I went to work. It really was an ideal schedule until it wasn't. Yeah. And we were at the point when I first had the opportunity to go to Sweetwater where my oldest was graduating from high school. The other one was just a year behind. And my husband and I had always worked opposite shifts. And I thought, oh, my goodness, what is this going to be like where we're just living parallel lives? Yeah. And I really was looking for an opportunity for us to reconnect because I knew that those empty nesting years would be challenging.
Oh, sure.
And it was a huge adjustment for our whole family to have me home at night. Yeah. I hadn't been. Yeah. And so if I'm just being completely honest, one of the things when I was first approached about getting back into television, I said right out of the gate, I'm not interested in working the night shift again and being here until midnight. Yeah. I really want to be able to have some quality time with my husband, my family in the evenings. And so that was very much a factor when I came back and part of the discussion.
So only share as much as you're comfortable sharing. But is it correct that you were approached by 21 Alive?
Correct.
So you weren't looking.
Not at all.
So you had some leverage in the conversation.
I did. And I don't like to look at it that way. But initially I even had said to them, I'm not sure the timing is right on this. But the more I thought about it and the longer the conversations continued. And for me, it really was kind of going home, if that makes sense, even though obviously I had worked at the competing station for many years. But I just feel like a newsroom is home to me. Yeah. I love the pace. I love the atmosphere. I love what I do. Yeah. And so I'm also, and I say this understanding that this is a complete place of privilege, but for me, this was not a career move that was about money. And I am fortunate that I have my husband's career. And so I was able to take a step back and say, okay, what is really important to me at this stage in my life? Yeah. And do I want a job where I can feel like I make a difference? One of the things that I enjoy, that I do a lot of, is mentoring the younger reporters. Yeah. And that is very fulfilling to me.
Yeah, well, I mean, I'm sure that you share this. I've always said that one of the best things about this phase of my career is that I get as much and probably more satisfaction helping lift other people up who are early in their career. I'm good. I don't need to lift myself up anymore. And you have that same opportunity.
Yes. And it's not for me about climbing a ladder. Yeah. It's really about where can I make an impact and how can I be the most fulfilled at the same time that I'm giving of myself to others. Yeah.
Well, and it's almost as if you probably have, I don't want to say more credibility, but it's an added layer of credibility since you left and came back, right? You've seen another opportunity, another career path, and you've come back at a time when, as you mentioned, it can be tough to be doing this job.
And I'll be honest, when they first approached me, I was shocked with the regard of, I'm over 50 now, and it's a career where many women, when they get that age, are starting to think about retiring because there is, unfortunately, an emphasis on appearance. Men tend to have a little bit longer longevity in that career than women do. And so the fact that they first approached me and saw value in someone who is a little more seasoned.
Yeah. Well, and I think you would never say this, so I'll say it for you. I think some of that is a credit to the reputation you built over the years.
Thank you.
Where people, they trust you, they recognize that you're approachable, which probably in the grocery store isn't always your favorite thing.
Yes.
But you're someone they can relate to and someone who they trust. So some of that is a credit to the legacy you built over the, 2 prior decades. So you mentioned this, and I want to dig in a little bit to the current environment. I mean, I'll go on the record as saying I'm someone who's a proponent of journalists and journalism. I think that a lot of the problems that are ascribed to journalists are societal problems and have nothing to do with the media. But not everyone thinks that way, and media's taken a lot of heat these days. Did you come back despite that, because of that, or somewhere in between?
Probably somewhere in between, but more despite that.
Okay.
I understand, especially working in a medium-sized television market in Indiana, I'm not going to necessarily change public opinion about the media. That's not my intention.
Yeah.
But my intention is, as you said, to lend some credibility. Not that 21 Alive didn't have that before. There's a great reputation and a long-standing, strong reputation there.
Yeah.
So it wasn't that I was coming in to change that, but I really did want to lend back some credibility. We have a lot of young people coming on staff. I was 22 once, just starting out, and I had a lot of really smart mentors who helped me and guided me and, offered corrections and some critiques and things. And so now being able to do that, I hope anyway, that it will help the next generation of journalists be good.
Yeah. Well, and I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit with this question, so feel free to yell cut and we can edit it out. But, if there's someone who's listening or somebody approached you who had a negative feeling about the media environment and you had an opportunity to speak from your position, what might you say to that person?
Yeah, I think we need to look at it separately when we're talking about national media and we're talking about local media. National media is a whole other beast. Yeah. It just is. Yeah. Local media, I often have said, we don't have an agenda. Now, that's not to say that every one of us doesn't have our own opinions about whatever's happening in the world. But I really, truly believe that we don't have an agenda. We are not out to change someone's mind or to influence someone. Whereas some of the networks, and they very openly. It's
become their brand.
Yes.
Right?
You know when you tune in to X network that you're going to get either, a right lean or a left lean. You're not going to get that in local news, I hope. Yeah. That's something that I work really hard at doing. And I think for the most part, we all do a good job of that.
Yeah. So what was it about 21 Alive, the team there, that made you feel like this could be a home for you?
Yeah. I always had a lot of respect for them, as a competitor. And we always, I'm not sure how much people are aware of the landscape competition, but we always have been very neck and neck, very evenly matched. And so there is a very healthy respect for each other. To be honest, one of the influencing factors was Linda Jackson. Linda and I have been friends for a long, long time. Worked together when I was an intern right out of college, and we're friends. And I really want to be able to work with somebody who is like-minded in terms of taking the job seriously, wanting to mentor younger people, really focusing on silly things like grammar. We are really good copy editors. And work really hard at that. And so I knew that getting to work alongside Linda would be rewarding to me. Also the management, the news director and the general manager. And so, I knew, quite frankly, coming into it, that some of the same frustrations that I had when I was in news the first time would still be there. The quick deadlines and, some of the simple mistakes that get made because
the speed at which things move.
And because now there's so much of an emphasis on digital. And so I knew that some of those frustrations would exist, and they still do. But I work really hard to combat those.
Well, going back to Linda, I mean, I was stunned in a very positive way. I'm like, wow, what a powerhouse team that is. Because a lot of things I said about you apply to her as well.
Thank you. Yes, and I would agree. I have nothing but respect for her.
So a pretty good person to be sitting next to, literally and figuratively.
And I said this very publicly before, that, again, going back to that, here you have a station willing to invest in seasoned veterans who, two women side by side, which, most local stations anyway have a man and a woman. But to have two women side by side, and both of us being over the age of 50, That, I think, speaks a lot to how things have changed and what audiences come to expect and are okay with.
Yeah, and good job navigating all the wording of that.
Thank you.
You said that really well.
So,
I watched the gears spinning, No, but it's unusual in a very positive way, and it speaks to values. It speaks to, really making sure that what's most important is the things you should be focused on, not the things that maybe shouldn't matter all that much.
Yes.
What's different, having worked in corporate communication, what's different about that versus your job now, other than the pace, other than the deadlines? You have deadlines in both, but what maybe don't you miss about the corporate communication world, and what do you miss?
Yeah. Those are the two big ones, the pace, the deadlines. What I love at the end of the day is, now I'm always thinking about work. I'm always looking for enterprise stories. I'm always, what story can we do the next day? But generally, with the end of the newscast, you put that newscast to bed, it's done, and instantly you're focused on the next newscast. Yeah. Whereas in corporate communications, your desk is never clear. Yeah. You're always working on long-term projects. You're always thinking more strategically. And I just found I'm better at the short-term, the quick stuff. Yeah. I'm better at the quick turnarounds. Yeah. Now, there are advantages and disadvantages. When we have to have a script done for the 5 o'clock show, it has to be done. Yeah. So
you don't finish, you run out of time.
You're done. And so, as a result, it's done. Yeah. In the corporate world, you go back and somebody else has to review it. Yep. And then another person has to review it. And then you go back and you wordsmith. And that can be really good. Yeah. It also can be incredibly
really
frustrating. But I just, again, about myself discovered, I just really like that quick. Yeah. I react very quickly to things, and then it's done, and we move on.
Does that manifest itself outside of your professional life?
Sure.
Yeah, because same. It's like your training. It's funny because at Asher, my role has become, kind of, in a sense, guiding some of our younger staff and then getting out of the way. But you always got to be thinking ahead. So I drive my wife nuts because I'm like, hey, we've got something coming up in November. And she's like, slow down, it's September. Yes. But if you always have to be thinking ahead at work, some of that's going to bleed into your personal life as well.
And so it does. It just fits my personality really well. And it was really actually reaffirming. When I first came back, I thought, oh gosh, am I rusty? Am I too old to do this? And what I discovered really quickly was, no, I chose the right career the first time. Yeah. And again, the experience that I had outside of a newsroom, I think, is incredibly valuable. The things I learned about just the business world and things like that. I'm hoping, anyway, that I bring those back into the newsroom this time around. And I didn't have that perspective before because I only had ever worked in newsrooms.
Well, and maybe a little more empathy for and understanding of the folks who are in those roles. Not that, you're going to change the story based on that, but the relationship can be different because you walked in their shoes a little bit.
Yes, for sure.
Speaking of relationships, one of the things you've mentioned a couple of times is your ability to mentor. So, you've got a lot of people out there, young people, who might be considering a career in journalism, maybe specifically broadcast journalism, but they're concerned because of what they've heard, because of some of the realities of it being a tough career. If someone was inhibited from pursuing that path and you thought it was a good choice for them, what might you say?
Don't give up. Don't listen to the detractors. If it's something that you truly are passionate about. And listen, what I'm talking about are the journalists who get into it for the right reasons. They want to make a difference. They want to tell people's stories. They want to have an impact, not just be on TV. Yeah. Because that is, at the end of the day, really a very small part of what we do. And I think sometimes just the public, they don't understand that. They think so much of what we do is what they see of us on camera. They don't realize the work that's going on behind the scenes. Yeah. So I think if you're young and enthusiastic and you have a passion for it, don't let that stop you. Yeah. Now, having said that, go into it with your eyes wide open as well. Understand that you are going to work nights and weekends and holidays. I still do work holidays. And, the pay may not be as good as it would be in the corporate world. But if you're doing it for the right reason,
that's going to be less important.
hopefully.
Yeah.
I say that, and I understand people,
sure.
You need to pay the bills.
Sure. Well, everybody's circumstance is going to be a little bit
Sure.
different, but if it's something you are truly passionate about, you can almost always find a higher salary somewhere else, but you and I have the good fortune of being in positions where it's, the money, I don't want to say it doesn't matter, but we love what we do, so it's less important. And that's
right.
where you want to find yourself. And if, you obviously, as you mentioned, need to be able to pay the bills, but that's kind of hard to put a price tag on.
And that's the advice I give to all young people.
Yeah.
Even my own daughters who are not getting into journalism, didn't go to school for it, but it is find what you're passionate about and then figure out how to get paid for it, because, and it's so cliche when you say that, you find a job you love, you never work a day in your life, but it's really true.
Yeah.
And so I say to all young people, and it doesn't mean you're going to find it right out of the gate.
Yep.
I think there's a lot of pressure on students these days to know what they want to do at a really early age. That's sort of how the schools, the curriculum is designed.
Sure.
And it's kind of unfortunate because I think, you need to explore and figure out what it is that you really care about.
Yeah, for sure. Sure, you don't want to box yourself in too soon by any means. Well, congratulations on having tried something else, and congratulations on figuring out that where you were is where you should be.
Yeah. It's been a lot of fun, and I will say people have welcomed me back very generously.
Yeah.
Again, not knowing how that transition was going to work out.
Yeah.
But it's been great.
Well, I'm sure that is earned more than anything else.
Thank you.
So,
thanks for saying that.
Well, and thanks for doing this. This was fun.
Thank you.
Thanks
it's
for
always
catching
good
up.
to catch up with you.
Yeah, thank you. And good luck with the wedding this weekend.
Thank you.
Matt Leach, bring us some sunshine.
Yes,
All right.
please.
Yep. Well, and thanks to everyone who took the opportunity to listen to this episode of the Asher Marketing Podcast. We'll be back next time with another great guest, and we hope you'll join us then.